There is a man Hollywood desperately wants you to stop listening to.
Oh yeah, I was surrounded by them. They were everywhere like vultures.
That is Corey Feldman. Not a politician. Not a legal whistleblower. An actor, the biggest child star of the 1980s. The Goonies. Stand By Me. The Lost Boys. Gremlins. At the peak of his career, this man had everything. Then he made a choice that cost him almost all of it. He decided he was going to talk. About the people. About the names. About the predators who, during Hollywood's most glamorous era, cast their nets around children. The price for that decision was 30 years of silence forced on him, dismissal, mockery, and a full-scale character assassination.
In this room are some of the most important TV and film executives in the world, people from every background, but they all have one thing in common. They're all terrified of Ronan Farrow. He's coming for you.
That is Ricky Gervais, creator of The Office, one of the sharpest satirical minds of his generation. He was no victim, no insider, just a man who walked into the most powerful room in Hollywood and chose, word by deliberate word, to tell them he knew exactly who they were. These two men never collaborated, never strategized together, but lay their public statements side by side. They were describing the same machine, the same culture, the same silence chosen over and over again. And now, with the Epstein files on the table, the Diddy case making headlines, and the quiet on-set documentary cracking Nickelodeon wide open, the world is finally catching up to what both of them already knew. This video is going to show you exactly what they saw, and why the people with the biggest platforms refused to say a single word about it. Let's go back to the beginning, because to understand what's happening right now, you need to understand what that era actually was, and what it cost one child who never made it out. The 1980s, Hollywood's so-called golden age. From the outside it looked exactly like that. The Goonies. Stand By Me. Kids were at the center of Hollywood's biggest stories. Audiences loved them.
There was a circle of older men, and they all had either their own power or connections to great power that surrounded themselves around this group of kids. And it's widespread.
Listen to that word. Widespread. Feldman isn't describing one predator who slipped through the cracks. He's describing an entire ecosystem. Agents, managers, producers, the very people who were supposed to be the gatekeepers, the ones who should have been protecting young talent, were the ones providing access. Parents were kept at a distance. They were told, "This is just how the industry works." And children, too young and too naive to understand what was being done to them, were told the same thing.
Oh yeah, I was surrounded by them. They were everywhere like vultures.
Feldman was 14 years old. He didn't fully understand what was happening at the time. That's not naivety. That's exactly how these systems are designed to work. They operate by ensuring the victim is young enough, dependent enough, and isolated enough to neither understand nor report what's being done to them. And here's what separates this from a personal account. Feldman says it wasn't happening to him alone. Other children were going through the same thing. The same names kept appearing across different stories, different sets, different years. This was not an isolated event. This was an industry-wide infrastructure, built on access and silence. Now let's talk about Corey Haim, because this story is ultimately about him. Feldman and Haim's friendship was the kind that can only be forged through shared trauma. When Haim first opened up to Feldman about what happened to him, Feldman realized they had been through the same thing, the same weight, the same secrets, and nowhere safe to put them. Haim started drinking during the filming of a movie called Lucas. He was a teenager, and on that same film, according to Feldman, something happened that would cast a shadow over every remaining year of Haim's short life.
As a little boy, and he told me that, it was his co-star. And he told me that it was Charlie Sheen.
Haim didn't only tell Feldman. According to the documentary, at least 12 people in their circle had heard the same account directly from Haim, across different years, different conversations. This was not a buried secret. Everybody knew, and nobody did anything. Read that again. The silence wasn't accidental. It was a choice, made over and over by person after person who decided that protecting their own position in the industry mattered more than protecting a child. Haim's addiction escalated. Alcohol, marijuana, then crack cocaine, day teen rehab. He called himself, in his own words, a chronic relapser. March 10, 2010. Corey Haim died at just 38 years old. Official cause of death: pneumonia. Feldman's belief: it was the childhood trauma. It happened on a movie set. The paperwork said pneumonia, but this story started when Haim was 13 years old. Nobody expected him to do what he did. Ricky Gervais walked onto the Golden Globes stage, the most watched award show on the planet, and joke by joke, he methodically took him, calibrated, deliberate, nothing accidental about it.
In no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg.
He told them they had no moral authority to lecture anyone. He named Ronan Farrow, the journalist system, and said every person in that room was terrified of him. Then he said the thing that silenced the room.
Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
Your friend. Not a criminal. Not a predator. Your friend. Gervais was standing on live television and implying that the people in that room had personal relationships with Jeffrey Epstein. And the room. The room went quiet. Walking out would have been an admission. Confronting him would have been an admission. So they laughed nervously, and the camera stayed on their faces. Every single one of them knew exactly what he was actually saying.
Talking of all you perverts, it was a big year. It was a big year for movies. Surviving R. Kelly, Leaving Neverland, Two Popes.
He called them perverts to their faces, on live television, and the press that covered the event the next morning treated it as edgy comedy, not the public reckoning it actually was. March 2020. Just weeks after Gervais's Golden Globes monologue, Feldman premiered his documentary My Truth, The Rape of Two Coreys. 3 years in the making. $1.3 million of his own money. Witnesses gathered. Accounts compiled. Names named. 400 people packed into a Los Angeles screening. Standing room only. The plan: stream it to the world simultaneously with the premiere. 15 minutes in, Feldman came sprinting down the aisle, flanked by security guards. He grabbed the microphone. Was it deliberate sabotage or overwhelming traffic? Nobody has proven either way. But this much is a fact. A man who had been systematically dismissed, discredited, and pressured to stay silent for years was finally about to show his evidence to the world. And at the exact moment it was supposed to reach millions, it stopped. Here's where the story gets bigger than any single person. Because Feldman and Gervais weren't the only ones pointing at this. Look at the pattern. Marty Weiss, the talent manager Feldman named as someone who had direct access to Haim, appears by name in the quiet on set Nickelodeon documentary. Different network. Different decade. Same name. Brian Peck, convicted in 2004 for crimes against a child. Went to prison. Got out. And was then hired on a network television show, Anger Management, where, according to sources, that hiring decision came directly from the show's star. Now connect all of this to the Epstein world. Transcript after transcript. Account after account. The same structural language appears. A network of powerful people who created environments where exploitation could happen and continue happening, because everyone with the power to stop it had too much to lose. Protect the industry, not the victims. That rule didn't begin with Feldman. It didn't begin with Epstein. It is the operating principle that has governed Hollywood since before any of these people had platforms. And now the Epstein files are on the table. Over 150 names in sealed court documents. And somewhere in Hollywood right now, people who know their names are on that list are watching the calendar and making decisions. Ellen DeGeneres relocated to the UK. Legal papers cannot be served overseas. Richard Gere sold his Connecticut estate at a loss. A multimillionaire who needed to move quickly enough to leave money on the table. Eva Longoria slashed the price on her Beverly Hills mansion. Rosie O'Donnell moved to Ireland, said publicly, "I will never return to the United States." Never. That's not a political statement. That's something else entirely. And Senator Chuck Schumer stood at a podium and issued a direct challenge.
President Trump, what are you trying to hide? If the administration withholds some documents unlawfully, we will know. If they abuse narrow exemptions to hide the truth, we will know. And there will be serious legal and political consequences. This law passed with your unanimous support. The survivors deserve the truth, and the American people are demanding it.
Feldman put it simply. One by one. Cosby, Weinstein, R. Kelly, quiet on set, Diddy, and now the Epstein files. Slowly, case by case, name by name, this machine runs on silence. And right now, that silence is breaking. Corey Feldman has been telling this story for 30 years. He spent $1.3 million of his own money making a documentary. He went to the Screen Actors Guild to change union rules. He named names on national television while being called a liar to his face. He did all of it because he made a promise to his dead best friend. And Gervais? He walked into the most powerful room in Hollywood and said, live in front of everyone, I know who you are. I know what you've done. And I don't care who's in this room.
Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know.
The survivors know the names. The files contain the names. And the people who spent decades in rooms with the individuals whose names appear in both places are now selling houses, crossing borders, and going very, very quiet. The people who spent 30 years calling Corey Feldman crazy. So here's the question: when you go back and watch Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes, knowing what you know now, does it still look like comedy to you? Or does it look like two completely separate people, using two completely different platforms, telling the exact same truth, in a world specifically designed to make sure nobody had to listen? Drop your answer in the comments. Why do you think it took this long for people to start listening? And if you already saw this coming, what made everyone else look away? If this video connected dots you hadn't seen joined before, hit that like button and subscribe, because the Epstein files are still being released, more names are still surfacing, and this story is nowhere near its final chapter.